The homeless veteran vs. the corporate GN. The security guard grabbed his arm. "Get out, you're scaring the customers." But the homeless veteran clutched the small glass vial tighter. "This pill killed my friend," he whispered, "and I can prove it." Nobody believed him. Nobody, except the young lawyer who overheard everything from the corner booth. The pharmacy's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Pat Tillman stood his ground. His weathered face, marked by 3 tours in Afghanistan, showed no fear despite the security guard's tightening grip. The small prescription bottle in his hand contained the evidence that would bring down one of America's largest pharmaceutical companies. But first, he had to survive the next 5 minutes. "I said move it, old man," the guard repeated, louder this time. Customers were starting to stare. A mother pulled her child closer. A businessman stepped back, clutching his wallet. Pat's voice remained steady. "These pills, PharmaCare's new PTSD medication. It's killing veterans. My friend Danny Mitchell died last week. Heart attack at 34. No history of heart problems. Just like the others." From the corner booth, Rebecca Foster looked up from her laptop. She was supposed to be reviewing a simple divorce case, killing time before her afternoon court appearance. But something in the veteran's voice made her fingers pause over the keyboard. As a public defender just 2 years out of law school, she'd heard plenty of conspiracy theories. This felt different. The pharmacy manager emerged from behind the counter, his face flushed with annoyance. "Sir, I'm calling the police if you don't leave immediately. This is private property." Pat turned to face him, and for a moment, everyone in that pharmacy saw not a homeless man, but a soldier. "Call them. I've got nothing to lose." "But you're selling poison to the people who serve this country." "Before we continue this incredible story, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you believe in justice for our veterans, hit that subscribe button. Here at Justice System USA, we tell the stories that need to be heard. Rebecca closed her laptop and stood up. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "I'm an attorney. Is there a problem here?" The security guard loosened his grip slightly. The manager's eyes darted between Rebecca and Pat. "No problem. This gentleman was just leaving." "Actually," Rebecca said, pulling out her business card, "I'd like to hear what he has to say." She looked at Pat. "Sir, would you like to discuss this somewhere more private?" Pat studied her for a long moment. Young, professional, clean. Everything he wasn't anymore. But there was something in her eyes, not pity, but genuine interest. "You won't believe me either," he said. "Try me." 20 minutes later, they sat in a nearby diner. Pat hadn't touched the coffee Rebecca bought him, too focused on laying out his case. From a worn backpack, he produced a folder thick with documents, photos, and printed emails. "I wasn't always like this," he began, gesturing to his appearance. 3 years ago, I worked for PharmaCare, senior lab technician, good salary, nice apartment, the whole deal." His hands trembled slightly as he opened the folder. "I was part of the team that developed Vetcom, their new PTSD medication." Anika leaned forward, scanning the documents, employment records, lab reports, internal memos, all bearing PharmaCare's logo. "What happened?" "I found irregularities in the testing data. Heart palpitations, elevated blood pressure, sudden cardiac events, all buried in the fine print or dismissed as unrelated." Pat pulled out a photograph. "This is Danny Mitchell, Marine, 2 Purple Hearts. Started taking Vetcom 6 months ago. For his nightmares." "The man you mentioned at the pharmacy?" Pat nodded. "Died in his sleep last Tuesday. Heart gave out. He was training for a marathon." Rebecca, "Healthiest guy I knew." More photos followed. Maria Gonzalez, Army nurse, dead at 29. Jake Thompson, Navy SEAL, dead at 36. All taking Vetcom. All dead from sudden cardiac arrest. Rebecca studied the evidence, her legal mind already working. "Did you report this when you worked there?" A bitter laugh escaped Pat. "I tried. Went to my supervisor, then his boss, then the FDA. Next thing I know, I'm fired for stealing company property. They destroyed my reputation, blocked me from getting hired anywhere else." Lost my apartment, my car, everything. He gestured to his current state. 3 years on the streets. But I kept investigating. How? Public libraries have internet. I tracked every veteran-prescribed Vetcom through online obituaries, social media, news reports. 47 deaths so far. All cardiac-related. All under 40. He pulled out a USB drive. Everything's on here. Emails showing they knew. Test data they buried. Even recordings of meetings where they discussed the risks. Rebecca held the USB drive, feeling its weight. Pat, if this is real, it's real. But who's going to believe a homeless vet over a billion-dollar company? I am, Rebecca said quietly. But we need more than belief. We need a strategy. That night, Rebecca didn't sleep. She pored over Pat's evidence, cross-referencing every claim, verifying every document. By dawn, she knew 2 things. Pat was telling the truth, and taking on PharmaCare would be the biggest challenge of her career. But first, she needed to keep Pat safe. PharmaCare had already destroyed his life once. If they knew he was still investigating. The thought was interrupted by her phone ringing. Unknown number, Rebecca Foster? The voice was professional, cold. Yes? This is Nathan Crawford from Crawford, Sterling, and Associates. We represent PharmaCare Industries. We understand you met with a disturbed individual yesterday, making baseless accusations against our client. Rebecca's blood ran cold. How did they know? I suggest you distance yourself from this matter immediately. The man you met with has a history of mental illness and theft. Associating with him could be damaging to a young lawyer's career. Is that a threat, Mr. Crawford? It's advice. Good day, Miss Foster. The line went dead. If you're fighting for justice against impossible odds, you're not alone. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. And remember to subscribe to Justice System USA, because every voice matters in the fight for what's right. Rebecca immediately called Pat's prepaid phone. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. Panic rising, she drove to the shelter where he'd said he sometimes stayed. The desk clerk shook his head. Haven't seen Pat in 2 days. For the next 48 hours, Rebecca searched everywhere. Under bridges, in parks, at soup kitchens. Nothing. Just when she was about to file a missing persons report, her office phone rang. Rebecca? Pat's voice was weak, strained. Pat, where are you? Hospital. I was jumped. 3 guys. Professionals. They took everything. The folder, the USB drive, all of it. Rebecca's heart sank. Without the evidence, but Rebecca, Pat continued, and she could hear the hint of a smile in his voice. They didn't know about the cloud backup, or the safety deposit box. I may be homeless, but I'm not stupid. Relief flooded through her. Which hospital? No, don't come. They're watching. But I need you to do something. File the lawsuit. Today. Once it's in the system, once it's public, they can't make me disappear without raising questions. Rebecca hesitated. Filing meant going public. It meant taking on not just PharmaCare, but Crawford's firm known for destroying opposing counsel as thoroughly as they destroyed cases. Rebecca. More veterans are dying. Every day we wait. I'll file this afternoon, she said. The lawsuit. Tillman v. PharmaCare Industries was filed at 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday. By 4:15, it was trending on social media. A homeless veteran taking on Big Pharma. David versus Goliath. The media loved it. PharmaCare's response was swift and brutal. By Friday morning, every major news outlet had received a press packet detailing Pat's history, his termination for theft, his mental health issues, his obsession with conspiracy theories. They painted him as a disgruntled ex-employee seeking revenge. Rebecca's small public defender's office was flooded with calls. Her boss, Carol Martinez, called her in. Rebecca, I admire your passion, but we can't take this case. We're a public defender's office. We do criminal defense, not civil litigation, especially not against. She gestured helplessly at the stack of threatening letters from Crawford's firm. Then I'll do it on my own time. With what resources? You've seen their legal team. 12 partners, 40 associates, unlimited budget. You're one person with student loans and a 10-year-old Honda. Rebecca stood up. Carol, he's telling the truth. Veterans are dying. Then find a firm that can actually help him. I'm sorry, Rebecca. That's final. Rebecca walked out of the office knowing she might not have a job to come back to. But she couldn't abandon Pat. Not now. That weekend, she worked from her apartment, transforming her living room into a makeshift war room. Pat, discharged from the hospital with a concussion and 3 broken ribs, slept on her couch. They made an odd pair, the polished young lawyer and the weathered homeless veteran, but they shared something crucial: determination. We need witnesses, Rebecca said, highlighting names from Pat's list. Family members of the victims. Other veterans who experienced side effects but survived. Pat nodded, then winced at the movement. I know where to find some of them. The VA hospital, support groups. But will they talk? PharmaCare has deep pockets. They could be scared. Then we need someone they can't scare. Someone with nothing left to lose. Pat smiled grimly. You mean like me? The first break came from an unexpected source. Dr. Angela Roberts, a cardiologist at the VA, contacted Rebecca privately. She'd noticed the pattern of deaths among her patients taking Vetcom, but had been told by administrators to keep quiet. I became a doctor to save lives, she told them in a hushed meeting at a coffee shop. Not to watch young veterans drop dead from preventable heart attacks. She agreed to testify. One witness became 2, then 5, then 12. Veterans who'd stopped taking Vetcom after experiencing chest pains. Families who'd lost loved ones. A former PharmaCare researcher who'd quit in protest. Each story added weight to their case. But PharmaCare wasn't sitting idle. Rebecca's car tires were slashed twice. Her apartment was broken into, though nothing was stolen. A message. Pat was followed constantly. Witnesses received anonymous calls warning them about consequences. Then came the pretrial hearing. Judge Elizabeth Hawkins presided. At 68, she'd seen every legal trick in the book. She listened impassively as Crawford himself argued for dismissal. Your Honor, the plaintiff is a terminated employee with a documented history of theft and mental instability. This frivolous lawsuit is nothing more than harassment, aimed at extorting money from my client. Rebecca stood in her off-the-rack suit, facing Crawford's $5,000 Armani. She looked like exactly what she was: outmatched and underfunded. But her voice was steady. Your Honor, we have 12 witnesses ready to testify about the lethal effects of Vetcom. We have internal documents showing PharmaCare knew about these risks. And we have 47 dead veterans who deserve justice. Judge Hawkins reviewed the preliminary evidence. The courtroom held its breath. Motion to dismiss is denied. This case will proceed to trial. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. Crawford's face darkened with fury. And Pat, for the first time in 3 years, allowed himself to hope. Do you believe everyone deserves their day in court? Then make sure to subscribe to Justice System USA. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story of ordinary people standing up to extraordinary power. The trial date was set for 6 weeks later. Rebecca knew she needed help. The evidence was overwhelming, but presenting it effectively against Crawford's team would be like going to war with a slingshot. Help came from an unexpected source. Michael Anderson was a senior partner at Anderson & Associates, a firm known for taking on corporate malfeasance. He'd seen the news coverage and was intrigued. I lost my nephew in Iraq, he told Rebecca over lunch. If what you're saying is true, if they're killing veterans for profit, my firm will take the case. Pro bono. Aneka nearly cried with relief. Suddenly, she had a team. Paralegals, investigators, expert witnesses. The playing field wasn't level. It never would be against PharmaCare's resources, but at least now they had a chance. The weeks before trial were a blur of depositions, motion hearings, and strategic planning. PharmaCare offered to settle, first for $100,000, then $500,000, then $2 million. Pat refused every offer. This isn't about money. It's about stopping them. It's about justice for Danny and the others. The night before the trial, Rebecca couldn't sleep. She walked to her window, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow, homeless veteran would face a pharmaceutical giant. David versus Goliath indeed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Pat. "Thank you for believing me. Whatever happens tomorrow, you gave me something I'd lost dignity." Rebecca typed back. "We're going to win this." She hoped she was right. The trial began on a cold Monday morning. The courthouse steps were packed with media, veterans groups, and protesters. Some held signs supporting Pat. Others, clearly paid by PharmaCare's PR team, denounced him as a fraud. Inside courtroom 4B, the contrast was stark. PharmaCare's legal team filled 2 entire tables. Crawford sat at the center, flanked by associates armed with laptops and boxes of documents. On the other side, Rebecca, Michael Anderson, 2 associates, and Pat clean-shaven and wearing a borrowed suit that almost fit. The jury filed in. 12 ordinary citizens who would decide whether a homeless veteran was telling the truth or living a delusion. In his opening statement, Crawford painted Pat as a bitter ex-employee who'd stolen company property and was now trying to extort money through lies and manipulation. He was smooth, persuasive, hitting every emotional note. Rebecca's opening was simpler. She showed pictures of the 47 veterans who died. Young faces, proud faces, faces that would never smile again. PharmaCare knew Vetcom could cause fatal heart problems. They knew, and they sold it anyway. Because fixing it would cost money. Because admitting it would hurt their stock price. Because 47 veterans' lives were worth less to them than their quarterly earnings. The first days of testimony established the foundation. Former PharmaCare employees testified about the drug's development. Independent doctors confirmed the link between Vetcom and cardiac events. Each witness chipped away at PharmaCare's denials, but Crawford was a master. He twisted words, confused timelines, and raised doubts. He brought in his own experts who testified that the deaths were coincidental, that correlation didn't mean causation. Then came the turning point. Dr. Kevin Walsh, no relation to Maria Gonzalez, one of the victims, was PharmaCare's star witness. Their lead researcher, he was supposed to testify that Vetcom was completely safe. But on the stand, under Rebecca's cross-examination, something shifted. "Dr. Walsh, do you recognize this email?" Rebecca displayed it on the courtroom screen. His face paled. It was an internal email he'd sent 3 years ago, expressing concerns about cardiac risks. An email that wasn't supposed to exist. Where did you get this? Answer the question, doctor. Did you write this email warning about Vetcom's dangers? Walsh looked at Crawford, then at the jury, then at Pat. In that moment, Rebecca saw his decision. "Yes, I wrote it. I warned them. They told me to bury it or find another job." His voice cracked. "I have a family, a mortgage. I stayed quiet, and people died because of my silence." The courtroom exploded. Judge Hawkins had to call for order 3 times. Crawford objected furiously, but the damage was done. Walsh continued, his words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. "We knew. God help us. We all knew. The executives called it acceptable losses. Said veterans were used to risk. Said they'd signed up for danger anyway." Someone in the gallery shouted in anger. A woman, the mother of one of the victims, was sobbing. Pat sat perfectly still, tears running down his weathered face. That night, PharmaCare's settlement offer jumped to $50 million. Pat refused. "I want them to admit what they did, publicly, and I want Vetcom pulled from the market." The next morning brought a surprise. When court reconvened, Crawford's chair was empty. A younger lawyer stood in his place. "Your Honor, Mr. Crawford has been called away on urgent business. I'll be taking over." But everyone knew the truth. Crawford didn't lose cases. He certainly didn't abandon them mid-trial, unless he knew they were already lost. The end came quickly after that. More PharmaCare employees, emboldened by Walsh's testimony, came forward. The evidence mounted. The jury took less than 3 hours to deliberate. We find for the plaintiff compensatory damages of $200 million, punitive damages of $1.8 billion. But the real victory came in the judge's additional ruling. PharmaCare was ordered to immediately recall VetCom and fund a monitoring program for all veterans who'd taken it. As they left the courthouse, Pat stopped on the steps. The same steps where he'd been dismissed as a crazy homeless man were now packed with supporters. Veterans saluted him. Families of victims embraced him. A reporter shoved a microphone in his face. "Mr. Tillman, what will you do now?" Pat looked at Rebecca, then at the crowd. "Same thing I've always done. Look out for my brothers and sisters who served. Make sure this never happens again. And the money? After legal fees, every penny goes to a foundation for the families of the veterans we lost. They paid the real price." Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. If this story moved you, if you believe in justice for those who serve our country, please share it. Subscribe to Justice System USA and join our community fighting for truth, one case at a time. 6 months later, Rebecca Foster sat in her new office. The publicity from the case had brought her job offers from major firms, but she'd chosen to start her own practice specializing in whistleblower cases. On her desk, a photo of her and Pat at the victory celebration. Pat himself had used some of the settlement to get back on his feet. A small apartment, nothing fancy. He spent most of his time working with the foundation they'd established, helping other veterans navigate the healthcare system. PharmaCare filed for bankruptcy. Its executives facing criminal charges. The FDA implemented new oversight measures for medications marketed to veterans. But in a homeless shelter in Detroit, a veteran named Thomas noticed his hands shaking more than usual after taking his new medication. He remembered seeing something on the news about a homeless vet who'd taken on a drug company. He picked up the phone and dialed the number for the Tillman Foundation. "Hello," Pat's voice answered. "How can I help you?" Because that's what heroes do. They help, not because they have to, but because they remember what it's like when nobody believes you. When you're dismissed, ignored, written off. Pat Tillman was homeless. He was broken. He was nobody, until he decided to fight back. And 47 families finally got justice, because one man refused to be silenced. The guard had grabbed his arm that day in the pharmacy, told him to get out, called him a problem. Turns out, he was exactly the problem PharmaCare never saw coming. A problem named justice. Thank you for watching this story. If you or someone you know has been affected by corporate negligence, know that your voice matters. One person can make a difference. Pat Tillman proved that. Don't forget to subscribe to Justice System USA. Ring the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because in America, justice isn't just for the powerful. It's for all of us, even the ones sleeping under bridges, especially them.